Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Welcome to our 46th installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Ekev. And here the Torah says, at the very beginning, it says, "This shall be the reward when you hearken to these ordinances and you observe and perform them. Hashem, our God, will safeguard you for the covenant and the kindness that He swore to your forefathers." So here the Torah says, again, starting from verse 12, in the book of Deuteronomy, that God's going to reward you if you do these mitzvahs. Now, I think we've spoken before about the idea that if we do the right thing, then we're going to get reward in the future, right? And the future means in the next world, as the rabbis teach us. Now, obviously, we're not doing things just for that. Obviously, if we keep the Torah and we keep mitzvahs, we're doing it because we believe it's absolutely the right thing to do, and it's the absolute will of God to do it. So therefore, we are doing it for that reason. Now, it's interesting, Rashi over here at the beginning of the Parsha, says that the mitzvahs that a person's going to do that are light in your eyes. In other words, they're light in your eyes. You don't necessarily take them so seriously, that a person sort of treads on them with his ankles, with his feet. That's the word Ekev means, literally means like the ankle. He steps on them and doesn't take them seriously. So here the Torah says that you have to keep these ordinances, but you have to be careful not to tread on mitzvahs that are light in your eyes. Now, we don't know, and this is probably the reason why we don't know. We don't know the merit for the mitzvahs that we do. There are only two mitzvahs where the Torah says you're going to get long life for. One is honoring your parents, and one is shiluach haken, taking the mother bird when the mother bird's hovering over her eggs and pushing the mother bird away. Those two mitzvahs, the Torah tells us you are going to get long life. Now, obviously, that cannot mean in this world. How do I know it can't mean it in this world? Because when it says long life, it must mean life in the next world. Why? Because there's a Talmudic principle, schar mitzvah b'hai al maleka, that the merit of the mitzvah in this world, there is none. Meaning that if we do a mitzvah, we don't get the merit for it in this world. Now, it's not so straightforward. It's a little bit complicated. Because someone who's really intrinsically evil, then the few mitzvahs that they do, God will give them their true reward in this world. And He'll give them whatever the reward is for those mitzvahs, and then He'll knock them off in the next world, meaning that when the person dies, that's it. My language goes poof, nothing happens. Right? They'll have no portion of the world to come. That's somebody who's inherently evil. Most people today are not inherently evil. They may be misguided. They may have tremendous lack of knowledge. Right? But not evil incarnate per se. So most people should have a portion of the world to come. But those people, those few people that certainly are inherently evil, which again, is probably not too many today, so they're going to get cut off. And they'll get the mitzvah or the merit for the mitzvah in this world. And, whatever mitzvahs they've done. In the next world, they won't have anything. Most people are probably in the middle. What we call beinonim, right? In the middle. So we can either go this way or that way, right? Depends on, it depends what we do. So we're sort of in the middle. Nonetheless, there's a big issue here. The issue is you trample on. So let's get back to the original point. So why don't we know the merit of what we do? In other words, why doesn't Torah say, okay, for this mitzvah you get so many points. For this mitzvah you get more. Some you get less, some you get more. What's going to be? What's the person going to do? Well, the ones with the highest points or the biggest merit you're going to get, you'll do that. You're not going to, if something's worth 150 and one's worth 2, what are you going to choose? You'll choose the one that's 150. I might be harder to do. Maybe yes, maybe no. But nonetheless, you'll pick and choose which ones you're going to do. Comes on Rashi. Rashi over here says that Mitzvahs that are light in your eyes. You trample on them. Hey, you don't think they're so important, so you don't do it. So, says Mori Varebi Ravagon Ramosha Sternbach, Shlita, may be well, brings down in his book on the Parsha Tam Vadas. He says like this. He says that mitzvahs that are light in your eyes. That means you don't take them so seriously. I do it, I don't do it. We don't take it so seriously. Something more stringent. Obviously, like the laws of Shabbos, we'll take more seriously. Laws of festivals, we'll take more seriously. Don't steal, don't commit adultery. These other things, we'll take more seriously because we know they're more serious. Right? Repercussions are much greater in many ways. But some other mitzvahs that, okay, if I don't do it, I transgress, but, I'm not going to get the death penalty. Right? At best, it might be a rabbinic transgression, but it's light in your eyes. So Marebi here says that something that's light in your eyes, in other words, you trample on them, and you don't take them serious, it's a lot more difficult to do tshuva. Why? Because if you don't look like you're doing anything wrong, if you don't have awareness that this is a problem, then how are you ever going to do tshuva? You might say, maybe it's not the best thing I did, but it looks so light in your eyes, maybe you don't even think there's anything wrong with it. It's what everybody does. So if everybody does it, so I'm no better. I'm no different. So why should I look at it as something severe or something that's forbidden? So something like that, how can a person do tshuva? How can they repent? It's just about an impossibility. Because in your own eyes, and maybe in the eyes of some of your peers, it doesn't look like it's a bad thing. And if it doesn't look like a bad thing, you're going to do tshuva, you're going to repent, you're going to say, I feel bad that I did it, you're going to confess, you're going to do vidui, you're going to confess and say, I sinned, I did this, I did that. No, you don't think you did anything wrong. And if you don't think you did anything wrong, you're not going to do tshuva. Pretty simple. Says Rabbeinu Yonah, beginning of tractate Brachot about blessings, that a person, if they transgress something that is openly forbidden, punishment's more severe. If you transgress something and you transgress something on a doubt, right? It's not clear, it's permitted, it's not. So you transgress on a doubt. If it's a doubt, now let's say it is forbidden, but you're not sure. So you do it anyway. What if it's forbidden? If it's forbidden, does he realize how stringent it is? Is he aware that he shouldn't be doing this? He doesn't know. He's got a doubt, right? There's a doubt over here. So the question is, how can you do tshuva on a doubt? The whole purpose of repentance is understanding I did something wrong. If you have a doubt, you didn't think you did anything wrong, you ever going to say you did something wrong? So let's make it a little more graphic. When does the person admit when they've done something wrong? Some people you say, well, they're openly honest, they do something wrong, they'll admit it on the spot. Could be. Could be there are many people like that. Other people will only admit what they did wrong once they got caught. And even if they did get caught, they'll justify it. Some people will try and justify it because, they just got caught, so they don't want to admit what they did. So they'll do whatever they can to get themselves out of it. One way of getting themselves out of it is try and justify it. Either it will be justified or it won't. But many people will not admit anything unless they get caught. If they get caught, then it depends what they're going to say and how they're going to justify it. So the real problem is, as we mentioned, something that's doubtful. Or maybe in his own eyes he thinks it's okay. Everybody else does it. But the reality is maybe it's forbidden. So if it's doubtful, does someone really understand what they did? So you can say, well, it's doubtful, and you find out later it's permissible. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with it. The question is, should I have done it? But let's say, for argument's sake, we'll make it easy, it is problematic. If it is problematic, how am I going to admit I did something wrong? You don't even realize what you did. Everyone else does it, or a lot of people do it. So they're trampling on something that is sacred. It's very difficult when you continually do something to take yourself out of it and not do it. Why? Because it becomes part of you. The more we habitually do something, the more difficult it is to change. That's the way of the world. Pick your poison, whatever a person's evil inclination is. A person, if they feed it enough, is part of them. They've been doing this for years, for months, for however long. You have a pattern. Very, very difficult to stop at cold turkey. Now, some people may have no choice because that type of behavior, whatever it may be, is destructive. Could be. And therefore, you have to go for therapy, get help somehow in order to stop this deviant behavior. But if it's not something, like that, but it certainly affects you negatively. So, doing something about it is much more difficult. Many people are creatures of habit. Being a creature of habit could be good or could be bad. If a person's consistent, we'll make it easy. They do good things, and they're consistently doing X, Y, or Z, and it's good. Okay? But if it's bad, and just to make a point, even if it's good, it may not always be good. It may go up and down. Right? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But something that's not good. Something that's not good, if a person continually does it, it affects them negatively. Now, it may not be direct. Maybe the first time it was fun. Tries it the second time. Maybe it's funner. Could be after a while it'll wear off. But the problem is, once that impression's been made, when I mean by impression, I mean on the soul, it sticks. It's there. So that's why idolatry is so difficult to go away from. Why? Because the Torah tells us that idolatry is something that sticks to you. Sticks to you like glue. Doesn't go away easily. So in order to get rid of it, and to fight against it, you have to work really hard. That's why someone, wants to convert, someone steeped in idolatry, it's very, very difficult to get out. Then eventually want to convert. Or not convert, don't have an obligation to convert, but people in idolatry get stuck in it. That's the nature of the beast. That's what it is. So it can be like anything. A person can be addicted to listening to the news all the time. A person can be addicted to, you fill in the blank. Whatever it is, that's bad. Now, we can never think, and we make a mistake. Many people make the mistake and think that this is not going to affect me. I'm bigger. I'm stronger. I am, I'm able to overcome this. Because the reality is, once we let something in, then it takes over. It may not take over the first time, but eventually, if it's negative, it will. I'll give an example. I just read an article recently about someone who grew up religious as an Orthodox Jew, never really had computer games, never got, addicted to computer games. Anyway, had a computer for work and heard about this craze called Candy Crush. So they said, like, how could people spend, hours upon hours, in money, buying new lives and all kinds of other things. They couldn't understand, couldn't fathom how people get sucked in. So they let it go for a while, couldn't imagine such a thing. And then decided they have to see for themselves. They really, they want to see what the craze is. Like, to them, it didn't make any sense. Why people should be wasting hours upon hours, playing this game. Like, what's the enticement, of this game more than other things? So the person downloads it on their computer, plays, finally gets, it takes a while, or it takes a little bit to get to the hang of it. And the more they got the hang of it, the more it became an obsession. They got knocked out for a little while, had to wait, so many hours to be able to play, scheduled different things around the time that they played. Eventually it became an addiction. That's what it became. They'd eventually stop cold turkey because it was overcoming their life. Now, this is an interesting case in point. Because if you see that millions of people, now again, I'm talking logic. Right? We're not going touchy-feely or filling a person's time or whatever the case is. Pure logic. Right? So if we know this game has millions of people play this game, that means they're spending however many hours on it a day. Maybe minutes will be nice, but probably hours. Fitting it into their schedule when they can play and this and that. So, if that's true, if that premise is true, and there are millions of people playing it, sounds pretty addicting. So, if you know something potentially is addicting, it's going to, and all right, it's a game. You're not it's not guns and splattering people and negative things like that. All right, it's a game. Can it affect me negatively or not based on the knowledge I have right now? So if we look at it, we can say, listen, got millions of people, got nothing better to do, and are wasting all their time, or a lot of their time, on this game. So I would venture to say, I don't think it's a big stretch, that that's probably going to suck you in. Now, if it sucks you in, it can suck you in wasting time, and it can suck you in money-wise also. But let's say it doesn't. Let's say it doesn't suck you in for money. You're just addicted to the game. So the obvious question is, should my focus be in other things? Yes. But if we're looking at it from an outside perspective, knowing that it's potentially addictive, or not even potentially, it's addictive. People enjoy it. A lot of people enjoy it. Spend hours on a daily basis playing it. Question. And this is what we should ask when we do anything. Is this good for my soul or it's bad? So if there's immorality and other things going on, yeah, for sure it's bad. If it is a question of waste of time, if you don't have an obligation to learn, if you're a woman, you don't have that obligation to be learning when you're not working. So, it's not necessarily a waste of time. But the question is that a good thing I should be doing? So you're going to say you're a fanatic, you need some downtime, you need to relax. Torah is very heavy. Yes, it is. And there's an obligation to try and reach the highest spiritual level we can. So, we'll ask very bluntly, if I play Candy Crush 2 hours a day, am I going to be a better Jew or a potential Jew or not? If the answer is no, don't start. If you're not sure whether it's good or not, you probably have enough information to say it's probably not good. So the question is, if I'm not sure, would I take a match and light something that potentially would burn my house down? Say, what are you, an idiot? Of course I would never do that. Why would I play with fire? So why would we play with spiritual fire? Answer, because we don't see what the effect it is. We don't see what it does to our soul. Remember, if a person's not going up spiritually, they're going down. No one's staying the same. No one's interested in being mediocre. Either you want to be going up, or God forbid you're going down. If you say, I'm happy the way I am, I'd rather just be mediocre and do a little bit of here, a little bit there. Okay, that's not Judaism, that's not Torah, that's nothing. So in this case, and this goes with any number of things, I'm always going to have to ask, and sometimes we just do, we don't think. Sometimes, or many times, you're going to have to ask, is this good for me, or it's not? Now, this is irrelevant of what people do. If a person's peers are all wasting their time doing this, and it's potentially addicting, so why do what your peers do? Might be peer pressure, could be. I think most people want to have fun, want to relax, and this takes their mind off other things. See, we live in a transient world. No one knows what tomorrow is going to bring. We should really be living this day as our last. And then at the end of the day, we'll take stock what we did and hopefully be prepared for what's going to come. But how many people live their lives really like that? Probably not too many. So what? Isn't that the ideal? Isn't that the way we should be living? Isn't that our mentality? That's where it should be? Not how many hot dogs we eat. Not what restaurant we went to. Not what sporting event we saw. Are those things good for me spiritually? And they're tremendously addicting. Don't get me wrong. It's not all bad unless, you live in a town or a city where your sports team never wins. Alright, that could be pretty bad. That you could say, tzaddik v'ralo, like when bad things happen to good people. Yeah, that I could hear. Competitive sports, isn't it interesting to watch if you're into sports? Tremendously interesting. Sucks you in. It's fun. Again, does it make me a better person? Right? This is a question we have to ask. So here, if I do things that we sort of trample on, we don't take them so seriously. As we said before, real difficult to do tshuva. So my Rebbe here says also, what is the simple explanation of the verse? What's it going on? So he said it's going on mishpatim. What's a mishpat? A mishpat, a law that we understand, right? It's going on the laws of money matters. Things we can process, things we can understand. Nonetheless, people are lenient when it comes to their own money. One of the ways the Talmud says we can test a person, or a person is tested, is by how much they drink, how much they get angry, and what they do with their money. Because when it comes to money, many people are lenient for themselves. In other words, they'll find leniencies for themselves why what they're doing is permissible. Now, most money matters, according to the Torah, are Torah prohibitions. They're not rabbinic. They're Torah prohibitions. If something's a Torah prohibition or a potential Torah prohibition, aren't we going to be more stringent? Aren't we going to be more vigilant in guarding against it? We sure should be. But why is it when it comes to money, and a lot of people that work in business, why are they lenient in cases where they shouldn't be? Because it affects their pocket. They don't want to lose money. But isn't the Torah true? Doesn't, God speak to all of us? And he says you're not allowed to do this or do that or whatever the law is. How are you lenient over here? You're lenient where there's no leniency. Because it affects your pocket. When it affects your pocket, it's unbelievable what kind of justification, people may come to. I'll give an example. Somebody came into a rabbinical court, and the claim was that the person owed money to a real estate agent. What happened? Person was shown an apartment, found an apartment for his son-in-law, and didn't want to pay the real estate agent. He didn't want to pay the real estate agent a finder's fee. So the guy claimed he himself was a real estate agent. So therefore, why should he have to pay? But the other real estate agent asked, very simply, how in the world did you get into that apartment? How did you get to see that apartment? So the guy said, you showed it to me. That's it. Game over. Connection. This guy showed him the apartment. He had rights to the apartment to show it. He's got to be paid, whatever the compensation is. So now you ask, as I was an observer watching this, I'm not going to call myself a rabbinical court judge by any stretch, but even me, I understood it. I don't think it's so hard for anyone else, it's not so hard to understand this. That if a real estate agent shows you a property and you try and circumvent him, he has to be paid. Why should he not be paid? So I was sitting there incredulous, like, what in the world are you thinking? Why in the world would you think you didn't have to pay? So one answer could be, there wasn't a question he didn't think he had to pay. He didn't want to pay. Now that the person is taking him to court, okay, so now I have to pay. That make any sense? Yeah, the guy didn't want to pay. That makes sense. But he owes the money. It's a Torah prohibition. He may keep Shabbos. He may keep kashrus. He may keep the laws of family purity. He may keep all these different things, but he's a ganef. He's a thief. He's got to pay back. But I've seen many things in my life that, like, your jaw would hit the ground. Like, are you serious? This is your claim? So the end of the story was interesting. Obviously, the guy had to pay. So he asked the rabbinical court, okay, I got this for my son-in-law. So who has to pay, me or him? So the rabbinical court said, you guys fight it amongst yourselves, and threw him out. He says, you guys can argue it. Now that makes logical sense. I mean, yeah, that does. But I'm saying, this guy coming with this claim doesn't want to pay. The Torah says, such a case you have to pay. So what are you thinking? He doesn't want to pay. Not thinking anything. Give another example. somebody comes to a rabbi and he says, I have a certain cloth. I have quality A, quality B, quality C. And he says, I want to sell it all as quality A. You're going to say, how can you do that? It's misleading people, right? You got quality A, B, and C. You can't sell it as quality A. The rabbi looks at him and goes, I don't understand the question. So he starts saying the question over a little bit slower. If I have quality A, B. So the rabbi looks at him and goes, I understood the question. What in the world? That it's Geneva. You're a thief if you do such a thing. He said, why in the world would you think that's permissible? So the guy answers, Rabbi, that's business. Again, he can keep Shabbos, he can keep kashrus, he can keep everything else. In this case, he's a thief. So the evil inclination, when it comes to money, is very, very strong. So my Rebbe here points out this is what it's talking about. It's talking about money. So when it comes to money, and this is one of the tests that a person gets, right, in order to test the fear of heaven of a person when it comes to money, what will he do? He'll manipulate. And he'll explain why it's permissible what he's doing. But you see, according to the Torah, there's no leniency. So you're like, what are you doing? And he'll justify it any which way. So my Rebbe here says, a person will do that and justify it in any which way in order to get out of pain or whatever the case is. The issue is that when something looks lenient in our eyes, we pass it off as something being permissible. We don't even look into it. It's like, it's trudged upon so much that what's the problem? What, there should be an issue? What should be the issue? Everybody does it. Just because everyone does it means I have to do it. So what if they have a big hat and a long coat and a long beard? What does it matter? It matters what we do. So the person misrepresents something, that's forbidden. For a Jew, for a non-Jew, it doesn't matter who you misrepresent. It's forbidden. So why do people do it? So normally I don't answer these questions. Is it permissible? No. But we are getting to the crux of the issue. The crux of the issue is you don't take it serious enough. When you don't take it serious enough, then you start making up things in order to justify. So then you can take something that may be certainly forbidden, and now you're bringing it up and saying it's a mitzvah for me to do this. That's crazy. Go back to the case of the real estate agent. What, you don't think he knows he's stealing? He's justifying. Badly. But that's what it is. It's a justification. Because he doesn't want to pay. So what it does is, it makes a very strong inroad to bad character. And if a person does that, he's going to do other things as well. Because he's going to corrupt himself. They might say, well, maybe he's only corrupt in that sense. Probably not. If a person refuses to pay a real estate agent, he probably does other things also. It's hard to imagine that's one thing. The guy's an absolute crook. Say his evil inclination overcame him. Yeah, we could justify it in some ways, maybe. It's still forbidden. And if it's forbidden, how many other things do they justify? I mean, I didn't go looking into this guy's life, into his life to see where he's holding and what he's doing. I could bet, though, and I don't usually bet, but statistically speaking, I guarantee there's plenty of things that are wrong as well. Not just this. There are people that, have certain desire for like one thing and not other things. Take someone who's a mafioso. Yeah, he's a killer. Okay, but look at how he honors his parents. Look how he takes care of his family. That goes all the way up. I mean, that's unbelievable. But he's a murderer. You can't take away the fact he's a murderer. He's taking people's lives away. So what if he's good with his parents and he takes care of his siblings? Yeah, the guy could be involved in prostitution, could be involved in money laundering, could be involved in drugs, could be involved in murder and all these things put together, but he's good to his parents. So what? And we have a precedent for this. Go look at good old Esav. Yaakov's afraid to confront Esav because Yaakov wasn't around for 22 years. And Esav honored his father like we can't even imagine. So Yaakov thought that would be a merit for him against Yaakov. That boggles the mind. Esav's a murderer. He's a womanizer. He's an idolater. He does all of them all together. Not a nice guy. Period. So what if he honors his parents unbelievably? And the fact that Yaakov wasn't around for 22 years. But look at how he runs his life. The guy's corrupt like you can't imagine. With a capital C. You want to tell me that that's going to have sway upstairs by God himself? That he's going to give him the upper hand against Yaakov, who's been sitting and learning and gone through these other trials? So what if he wasn't around to honor his parents? I mean, he did honor his mother because the mother sent him away. He said, until Esav's anger subsides, you can come back. Otherwise, sent him away and sent him to a place where he can get married. So he listened to his mother. But if the guy's no good and is corrupt and does, every transgression in the book plus infinity, so what do I care he honored his parents? One of the 10 Commandments, he honored it more than anybody else in the world ever created. So what? Look at all the other things he did. You want to say honoring your parents goes all the way up here? And all the transgressions is like here? Right? You're going to go like this? It's crazy. Doesn't make any logical sense. One is not going to offset the other. But still, Yaakov is afraid. And God will mete out justice as he will. Now, Esav is not going to justify himself. He's not going to say what he's doing is right or whatever. He's too attached to the body. His body controls him. So he's not in control of his own life. He's just going according to what his desires take him to do. I mean, if I would have been there, I would have coached Yaakov and I said, don't worry about it. So what if he honored his father? Plus infinity. Who cares? He's going to pay the price. You got nothing to worry about. That's how I would have coached him. Nonetheless, he's still worried. He still has a genuine fear that could sway God to the other side. And maybe he did something to cause, that maybe he sinned, and whatever the case is, and his merit's not going to guard him, regardless of what Esav has done. That's a mind-boggling way to look at things. We wouldn't think that way. I would have thought just the opposite. Just shows you where the Torah is going and where I'm going. Or where most people would probably think on this. 1,000,000 transgressions, 1 mitzvah against it. That's going to offset it? I wouldn't say that. Not in the least. Maybe it'll help a drop. Maybe. Like it's 1,000 against 1. I don't care how well he did this one thing. It's not going to overcome the 1,000 that he did. So the issue is that you let something like this inside and you don't stop it, you don't nip it in the bud, it can control you. Because the more you do it, the more difficult it is to stop. Now, sometimes the only way you'll be able to stop it is to hit rock bottom. Then the only way you can go is up. Right now, someone who's a gambler. And he just keeps going till he loses everything. Loses his house, loses his wife, loses his kids. Once he hits rock bottom, then he can start to change or work on change. Someone is involved in drugs. Someone who's an alcoholic, same thing. Sometimes you have to hit a certain point where, you have no choice. You have to, A, admit you have a problem, and B, get help for that problem. Well, let's go back to the beginning. Right? How does this happen? It happens because we look at things as not being important. We look at mitzvahs as not being so important. Some mitzvahs. So an attitude like that, it's only a matter of time where you're going to justify even why more severe mitzvahs are permitted. So therefore, we have to work hard not to get ourselves in that situation. But we mentioned, aren't we habitual people? Don't we do things? We're creatures of habit. Yes. Now, some of those habits may be good. They may be incredibly good. At the same time, we probably have habits that are bad. I'll give one example. Think about the idea of thinking before you speak. How many times have we said something when we shouldn't have? Or how many times we thought something and all of a sudden we spit it out? Because we weren't careful. We were thinking what we wanted to say, then we said it. Now, if it's something crass or crude or whatever, so obviously an apology you have to make. But once you spit it out, you can't take it back. You can't say I didn't say it. Even though I had someone who made a pretty nasty comment to me once many years ago, and I called them on it right after they said it. They said, I didn't say that. I said, oh, maybe my alter ego heard it. Maybe I was just, eating a hallucinogenic mushroom and I dreamt it. Maybe. I said, didn't you just say this? They denied it on the spot. I said, well, I know I'm not deaf. I know my hearing's still pretty good, regardless of how loud the music is. They denied on the spot, didn't say it. I mean, unless there was a ghost, I heard it. Can't deny that. So, we got to be careful what we say. I mean, that's pretty obvious. So, when it comes to, we're in a confrontation or someone says something or whatever, think before you speak. Because the repercussions of what you may say at that time may be catastrophic. There may be no turning back. And that would be tragic. Because as much as you want to say, I didn't mean it, whatever, you said it. And sometimes the relationship is absolutely never the same after this faux pas. Now, it's not really a faux pas. You meant to say it. Because you thought it. But you didn't want it to come out. But what happened? It came out. So because it came out, now you're going to pay the price. So, we have to look at every mitzvah as a decree. Doesn't matter we understand it better, we understand it worse, whatever it is. If we look at every mitzvah as a decree, then you don't have this problem. You can't look at anything and say, oh, that's really minor, so I don't really have to pay attention to it. You'll never do that. You'll never even come in contact with such an idea because it's a decree. If it's a decree, that's it. So you have to do it anyway. You're not going to justify it. There's no room for justification. Absolutely none. Because you're going to say it's a decree. Because it's a decree, that's it. You say, it's a rabbinic rabbinic ordinance, maybe it's from the Torah, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. There's nothing. It's a decree. Period. No problem. You won't come in contact with transgression. In this case. Because you won't look at any mitzvah as being something that's small in my eyes. And that, everybody does it, so they're lax, I can also be lax. Korach missed that point. Because that Korach understood that everything was given by God to Moshe, he wouldn't have come out against Aaron. Even if he saw all the miracles. If he would have understood it was a decree, and that God made the decree, that's it. Nothing else. And Korach was no dummy. He understood. He carried the iron. And if he wasn't on a level, he would have died carrying it. Can't imagine who this guy was, but jealousy killed him. So we can't take anything lightly. And if we have a doubt whether something is good or not, and it's potentially bad, we have to look at it like it's fire. Because if we don't, what is going to happen is we're going to get sucked in, eventually. It won't be automatic. It'll be more subtle. And if it's more subtle, it's going to affect you, eventually. Be like, taking a pickaxe at an iceberg. Chop, chop, nothing. Chop, chop, nothing. Chop, 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 chop. Eventually, you're going to start making headway. That's what the Yetzer Hara does. Until the Yetzer Hara says, I own you. So you say, but the evil inclination does own us on many things. Maybe. We got a lot to work on. But even if we look at the laws of money as a decree, I'm not going to justify anything. You're going to say, I'm not allowed to do it. So you stay away from it like the plague. Otherwise, very, very easy to get sucked in. And we're very good at justifying all kinds of things. We've seen in the world how morality gets justified. Something that was forbidden 50 years ago today becomes a mitzvah because morality changes. Torah can't do that. Torah is absolute. Take a look at the first of the 13 principles of Maimonides. God is absolute. If he's absolute, then it doesn't change. Absolute truth comes from him. It's constant. If it's moral relativism, it can change, but it's not. So we see what the world looks like when that occurs. I want to remind people I have an intro to Kabbalah class. We're speaking about why God created the world and divine providence. Do I have free will? That's every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock New York time. I also give classes to people who want to convert, or people don't want to convert to Noahides. Take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, or Beyond Noahides. You can take a look at my blog, orthodoxconversion.com, and anyone wants to contact me, send me an email at rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Everyone have a great Shabbos.